Started.
Good morning, everybody. At 11:03, we're going to call to order the Center County Retirement Board meeting for Thursday, May 14th. We're going to first begin by establishing the quorum. This is Mike Pipe. I'm here at my home in Boalsburg. Commissioner Higgins.
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Dersham.
I am here.
Treasurer Kennedy.
Here.
And Controller Moser.
Here.
Okay. All five of us are here, and we have a quorum. We're going to move into our public comment section of our agenda. Public comment at this time. Seeing no one, we will move to the approval of our minutes from our prior meetings. We have the minutes from April 21st and April 28th. Is there a motion to approve both sets of minutes?
Don.
Motion to approve.
Second. Steve.
Okay, it's moved by Controller Moser, seconded by Commissioner Dersham. Any further discussion on those sets of minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes from both meetings, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion is approved. We're going to go to correspondence. We have one item of correspondence we wanted to note.
Yep.
Mr. Moser, would you want to elucidate that?
Yep. That is our financial reporting, accounting report on the GASB 67 and 68 was sent to us at the beginning of this week from Jason Fine at Corps Ferry. So I wanted to make sure you all had both his insights from his email on that and report, which I did include in the email attachments. Again, I know we just got at the beginning of the week, so it's a lengthy report to digest prior to this meeting, so I just wanted you all to have it and be able to review it. And then we can bring it up at the next meeting if anybody had any questions or wanted to add it as a topic of conversation at that time.
Okay, I do know that we have David here with us as a guest from Corn Ferry. And if there's any questions at this point on the evaluation report, GASB 67, 68, we can certainly discuss the preliminary report at this point, but we can also turn it over to Dave. Was there anything that we wanted to ask or discuss on the report at this point before we turn over to David? Okay. Hearing none, we will allow do some introductions of David, and then we'll turn the floor over to him.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning, and thanks for having me. As far as the GASB report, if you have any questions, I can try to answer them. The GASB report it is based off of the information for the 1/1/2019 report. So it was based off of some old assumptions, the 7.5 discount, and under GASB, that does value the assets on a market basis, not a smoothing basis. That's how GASB requires it. So, if you have any questions on the GASB report, I'll open them up to any questions that you may have. Okay, hearing none, then I'll move forward. There was another point of discussion.
Always interested in.
Go ahead.
Sorry, David, with one question here. We're always interested in, I'm looking at page 8 of the document here, and you have our total pension liability at essentially the amount that we have it funded at 99.24%. And we just wanted, and in terms of, we sometimes hear different percentages of how funded we are, underfunded. But when asked by the public, what would be the answer based upon this preliminary report on as of December 31st of 2019? Let's not even talk about 2020, but just December 31st of 2019. What percentage was our fund funded at?
The way that I would respond to that is on an accounting basis, you were 99.24% funded rate. So there, I would just, kind of couch that and say that it's on an accounting basis.
Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Just as an overview that gives us a consideration of that. And on page 9 of the PDF, you have the 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18 number and the 2019 number. And we fluctuated anywhere from 100.27% on an accounting basis all the way down to 87.52%. So just wanted to highlight that and note that for the record.
Yeah, and those numbers are really good numbers. Your plan is in good shape, and that's the message that we want to emphasize, that your plan is in good shape and has been in good shape for a number of years, and we just want to continue to keep it in that good of shape.
Absolutely.
Any other questions in regards to the GASB report?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds like you
Hearing
don't have any more questions. Yeah.
Did we want to move to the old business, or did we want to talk about the funding report for 2020?
Sure. No, I think if you had another idea, I think we would transition into that funding letter. But Controller Moser, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, still remembering to take mute off. No, I think we're good to move to David's discussion points regarding the mortality tables and the way the accumulated deductions are valued.
Okay.
Okay, so then moving on to the valuation report for 2020. The funding report is based off of various assumptions, and there are a lot of assumptions. Two of the main assumptions are the mortality table and the valuation interest rate. You had changed or lowered the valuation interest rate from 7.5 to 7.25 at the end of last year, and that's going to be reflected in this year's report. And all these assumptions are just our best guess of what's going to happen in the future, and we're just trying to use these assumptions to come up with a contribution amount each year so that you have enough money in the funds to pay all the benefits that you've promised over the years. And from time to time, we just want to look at what the various assumptions that we use and, possibly move forward with those assumptions. And the one that I want to talk about today is the mortality table. The mortality table that you currently are using is what we describe as the RP 2013. And that's based off of information from 2000 and then projected forward to 2013. So there is some projection moving forward with the current mortality table. But the Society of Actuaries does a study probably every 10 years or so on the mortality table. And they just came out in January of 2019 with a new study or new mortality tables based off of their study. And that information is based off of public sector retirement plans. And this is something that's new because in the past, they've never based any mortality tables off of public sector information. It usually had been based off of just private sector plans, but in the last, say, 10, 15 years, there hasn't been as many private sector defined benefit plans in existence. What has happened in the private sector is that a lot of the DB plans have either frozen or have terminated and moved over to a defined contribution plan. But so the Society of Actuaries said, hey, let's come out with public sector or mortality tables that are based off of the public sector information. And, that's what, we are looking at, and we would probably recommend that you move towards at some point, and we have put numbers together for 2020 to see if you would be interested in moving this year. One of the reasons why we wanted to show you the numbers is that the increase isn't that much if we revise the way that we value the members' accumulated deductions. Making those, and what we are doing with the members' accumulated deductions is, and I'll step back as far as what we have done. What we have done in the past with the members' accumulated deductions is always, we've kind of just valued them as is. Whatever someone's accumulated deductions value was, that's what we valued it as. But in about 4 or 5 years ago, when GASB 6768 came out, they did allow, or they did suggest that we value these members' accumulated deductions at a discounted rate. And with that said, we never did move or change that for the retirement funding plan, but we wanted to hold that kind of, back for the fact that we wanted to, transition to that way of valuing it when there was something else that would cost a little bit more or cost the plan more to, to value the benefits. And so we felt that this would be an appropriate time to, make that change as far as the accumulated deductions, because we wanted to possibly change the mortality table. Now, these two changes are just, suggestions or recommendations on our part. We don't know, as far as the county is concerned, what their budget looks like, what their finances are as far as, other things that are going on in the county. So that's why, we're just, kind of throwing this idea out there. But making these two changes would increase the ADC or the contribution for 2020 about $90,000. So I'll stop there and just listen to any questions that you may have in regards to these changes.
Thank you, David. And you are correct that at the end of December of 2019, the retirement board did take action to reduce the assumed rate of return from 7.5% to 7.25%. However, in April, we actually took action to take it back up to 7.5%. And so
Okay.
I believe that we'll be officially notifying you about that to update your numbers. But would because I think it'd be helpful, because if these numbers that you have here that are on this document entitled Center County Summary 002, this PDF, if they're based upon 7.25%, it'd be important for us to appreciate that the ADC numbers. And I don't know if you could give us the 7.5 now, or if it's possible to give that in a later email.
I can't give you the numbers right now, but I can work them up and forward that information to you, probably within the next week, if that's fine.
Okay, that'd be great. Oh, that's sure. I think that's fine. In terms of the delta, would it be fair to say that the delta between these amounts would probably stay the same, or essentially they would move in tandem, where the current one would probably be the lowest, the next one would be right next to it, which would be the revised method for member deductions, and the one that would be probably the highest would be the revised life expectancy. So they almost might reduce a little bit, but they would still the delta between them would stay similar?
Yes, that is exactly correct.
Okay, thank you. But with that being said, we'll get the document from Korn Ferry in the next week or so. Any questions on this? Any feedback, comments?
Hi, Mike. It's Jason. David, I just, David, I thank you for jumping on the call this week to talk this with the whole board. I know they appreciate it as well. And I just say that I think when Colleen and I met with David and Chris, the Korn Ferry, oh, geez, it feels like it might have been a year ago, but I know it was only about 6 weeks ago. And we had talked about the new mortality tables coming out. So I thought that was an important thing for us all to hear too, because I don't think we went into depth during that conversation, but to know that it was public employees and stuff that was coming out was, I think, important for the whole board to hear as well. So I just wanted to thank David for jumping on and doing that for us.
Yep, no problem, and we appreciate the opportunity to discuss this today.
Okay, one final call in terms of any question for Dave on the 2020 potential changes?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Colleen or Mark, any other comments, thoughts?
No, thanks. I'm good.
I'm fine.
Okay. Margaret or Tom, any feedback, thoughts on this, questions?
I'm good.
I think it'll be safe to say that if we go with either the current or the revised method for member deductions, that we will be will be coming underneath the estimated amount that we had in our budget for the 2020 county budget. So that's good news in that regard. However, for future ADCs, again, we say it time and time again, we could be doing great on December 30th, 2020. It all matters on what happens on December 31st, 11:59 p.m. So depending on what that looks like, but if the market continues to be where it's at, we know our ADC will certainly increase in future years. But for this, as of right now, this is good news. So David, We haven't been having a terrific amount of good news from some of the people we've had on our retirement board calls, just with the market as it is. So this is a ray of sunshine for us, at least in the short term. So we thank you for providing this, and we look forward to getting the document with the 7.5% in it, and we'll go from there. But again, thank you for everything you're doing for us and the rest of the team at Korn Ferry, and we look forward to having further conversations in the future.
Good, thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay. All right, David, we'll wish you well, and thank you very much for joining us. We're
Okay,
agenda
thank you.
And move into a discussion. Oh, sure, you're welcome. Going to move on with our agenda and go to a discussion of rebalancing strategy, and this would be for the basing risk on the age composition of the county pension plan participants. Did we have in terms of this discussion item, was there a specific age? I know that we were going to have a discussion about some of the money managers, but in terms of the age composition, what was that in reference to?
That was in reference to the article you had sent out to everyone after the last meeting that discussed what government entities could do to mitigate risk.
Okay.
And one of the things that they mentioned was a rebalancing strategy that's based on the age profile of your retiree pool, meaning that as people get older, things would rebalance to be less risky to make sure that the fund is safe as people approach retirement. This reminds me of, I think we have it here, where you have retirement funds or defined contribution plans where you can determine what your retirement year, you can estimate what your retirement year is, and then your portfolio rebalances itself as it approaches your retirement year to become safer and safer. So the article you provided didn't have a lot of detail about it. So I don't have a specific proposal, but I don't know if that's something that could be discussed with fund managers or something like that. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does, absolutely. Yeah, I think the reason I sent the article out was to make us aware of, as we're talking about any future plan designs or changes, that, as we know from the Great Recession, in the years after that, the legislature here in Pennsylvania, and also GASB and actuaries put together different strategies because they realized, I think, from not an objective observer point of view, there was going to be a challenge with a lot of pensions being able to make up the losses that they sustained during their times. And for some of the pensions that were already not well funded prior to the Great Recession, they needed to come up with, I guess you could even say, a magic wand to help certain pension plans be able to, survive. We, on the other hand, in Center County government at that point, and Commissioner Dersham can attest to this, were able to recover very strongly, and we're in a good position prior to it and weathered the storm. And, in recent years, we've been at 100% funded, and last year we ended at just shy of that. So I just was alerting the board to, we may be, because we were, again, entering into the pandemic and COVID-19 and how it's greatly affected the markets, as we were shown today, we're basically at 100%. If any other, again, GASB, actuaries, the federal government, state government, if they come up with sort of magical tools to help pension plans that weren't doing so well before this, we could be able to look at those as strategies that could help us to better align our fund, or some of the actuarial models that we were concerned about going towards, like the public employee actuarial model, we may actually be able to go to that because there might be some other options that we could incorporate into the plan. But I failed to appreciate the fact that that was part of the article as well. And Colleen, you pulled it out, which was essentially having, like you said, a plan that's designed that a portion of the funds, as people are nearing their retirement or a certain age, would go into a fund that's a little bit more safe and less risky. So I did not appreciate that when I sent the article out, but that's a great idea or a great thing for us to consider and look at. And it may segue well into the general topic, and I think we can just kind of talk about this in general, would be the performance of some of the money managers we have. And we've had a long-standing relationship with especially CS McKee, but the numbers speak for themselves. And as we saw from their most recent report, that through the quarter, this first quarter, and then also in subsequent time frames, they have been underperforming the benchmark. That's number one. And in their equity, or in the U.S. markets, they were underperforming, or I should say they were performing worse than the benchmark, which is a huge cause for concern right now. And then also Twin Capital, we specifically went towards them because they marketed the plan that we're in, or their investment strategy, as when the market has a downturn, you're not going to be hit as much in this plan. And unfortunately, that was not the case. We underperformed in that account. And, on the call, I expressed some of the reservations and concerns I had. I was, frank with the team from Twin Capital, saying, you said to us, when the market and goes negative, you're not, in this plan is going to help you cushion your total plan, and that wasn't the case. And that was the time that we needed them to perform. Emerald, on the other hand, is beating the benchmark. They weather the storm better than most. So just to kind of cut to the chase, I am more open than I have ever been before about looking at strategies to reutilize the Twin Fund and portion of the CS McKee Fund in different ways. And that would be including passive management, where we're looking at an entity that would just manage our funds, and where we wouldn't control the market, and we obviously, nobody has a crystal ball. We would be able to control the fees that we're paying. We would be paying lower fees in a passive management strategy. And I'm very much open to that. Wanted to get the sense of the retirement board on, and for us to talk about that and put it out there for discussion. And I will say that we have a working relationship with Public Financial Management, PFM, who has done work for us before, and they do work for retirement accounts across the state, across the world, actually. But they're very familiar with Pennsylvania retirement funds, and we did this in 2018 with an investment, or with Chuck Freelander. We worked with him, where he did a study for us of our fund, and we took money. You can actually use money from the retirement account, or the retirement fund, to fund these kind of studies. And so I would be open to asking PFM to put together some data and numbers for us when it comes to passive management, whether that's Vanguard or Northwest, or there's a number of different passive funds out there. But essentially, the thinking would be, frankly, Twin and CS McKee, based on their numbers, have been underperforming, and it would be better to be able to control our fees rather than, obviously, the complete uncertainty of where the market's heading. So that's my comments, that's my thoughts, and of course I wanted to bring it to the full retirement board to get your thoughts and opinions, and feedback on that.
I agree with you that fee management is going to be an important issue. If we can control our costs, that's something, like you said, that we do have control over. The market is something, obviously, we have less control over. So
I think we probably need to get some advice, but this is one of those times where I would measure twice and cut once, because we've had a great relationship with McKee, and although the situation now might be a little compromised, I think moving forward, just continuing the dollar cost averaging and making sure that we make the contribution to the fund, so when there is a recovery, and I believe there will be, we can benefit from that.
I think, I mean, Mike, to your point about passive management, I think it's a good time to explore it. I did, in the meantime, in the lead up to today's meeting, as David and I were talking about the report that he talked about today and everything, I did have him send some additional suggestions or recommendations for potential managers as well. So we had that information going forward. I mean, it wasn't anything we needed today. It was just names and who they work for. So we do have a list of contacts that we can look at if we, after talking with PFM, that sort of thing. But, given the way Twin did perform, I mean, if it was, I know March was an odd period with everything going on. I'll cede that. But at the same time, to your point, and to Twin's point, they're supposed to protect us in that. And if it was a minor difference, I think, in between the benchmark and where they performed, it would be one thing. But it was fairly significant, I think, from my perspective, of where they performed. And, that's not, I don't think, the service we're enlisting them on. And so I'm certainly open to that, regardless of where we go with passive management and stuff. I am open to changing that relationship with Twin to be tactful in saying it. So I guess that's my position on it, that I would be well open to exploring that one for sure. The passive management as well, I think, especially not knowing where everything's going today with COVID and the economy and that sort of thing. I think we need to put all of our cards on the table and explore kind of all the options that we have out there to make sure that our pension fund is well protected well into the future.
This is Mark. Yeah, I am also very disappointed in Twin's results. We've been giving up hundreds of basis points a year in return, with the assurance that if the markets did collapse, that we would still lose money, but hopefully be a couple hundred basis points better than the market, and that just was not the case. Quick question for Colleen. Really like your retirement fund estimated blended investment returns chart.
yeah,
But the annual return, is that before or after fees?
that's net of fees.
That is net of fees. Okay,
Mhm.
good. Yeah, because we've been actively managed here for quite a while, and with the exception of the occasional lucky year for McKee and Twin, that generally, and I think actually for McKee over decades, you got to go back almost 30 years now before they have a positive return compared to the benchmark. So yeah, I'd be happy to look at a review of the entire investment strategy, but most especially with Twin. We've paid them a lot of money for downside protection, and when we hit a significant downside situation, we didn't even come close to matching the benchmark, much less beating it.
I would say that pursuing at least an exploration of passive management would be worthwhile, even regardless of the recent performance by our specific managers, just because if you look at the research on active versus passive, passive management basically follows the market. So you're not looking at big alpha, and active management just in not just our specific situation, but if you look objectively, active management, it doesn't have a great track record. And so why not save the fees? I mean, it's not terrible, but I don't think it's necessarily worth the cost, especially if we're dealing with public monies. Why not just follow the market essentially 1-to-1 and pay less in fees?
Yeah, and this is it started with the CS McKee call that we had. And look, we've been with CS McKee, I want to say, since 82. I think since 1982, we've had a relationship with them as a county government. But if you look at their latest report, and this is on page 2, there are, other than their fixed income, they've done a great job with fixed income. So I will say that that is a large portion of the fund that we have with them, and they have done a good job with that. So again, my recommendation would not necessarily be that we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater, that we're not looking at just a complete. I am advocating that with Twin. I will say with Twin, I think that they were really good at selling us as a retirement fund. The fact that this was a more conservative strategy, it can help us during the time, and I think it hasn't worked out. So I am suggesting that and open to that. But on the CS McKee side of things, their total portfolio, when you look at they've got 7 or 6 columns essentially: 15-year, 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1-year, year to date. Every single one of them, they've missed the benchmark. Every single one of them. And so, we've got, and again, past performance does not equal past success. But I do think it's fair to say that if we know that they have not been able to, for the last 15 years, markets doing very badly after, the Great Recession, during COVID-19, and they've done very well, they're still seeing that they're not able to beat the benchmark. It's tough to not look at, again, a passive management strategy that could save us potentially some money with fees. And again, I've had this sense for a few quarters now, but seeing how they did during the last 3 years, over the last year, and then how they did during this quarter, where the market was down negative 19.6%, where they were down 25.36%. That's quite that's millions of dollars that we're talking about there that they missed out on. And again, not faulting them. I'm not expecting them to be able to predict the future, but actually we actually are asking them to have a semblance of what the market's going to look like in the future. So I don't want to belabor this, but my suggestion would be that we would reach out to PFM and just ask them what our concerns are. Our concerns are that our interest would be in finding how would we engage with passive managers, and just ballparking what kind of savings could we potentially be looking at, fees, and what that would look like. Again, we would not be saying to any of our money managers we're ending any relationships or reducing the amount that we're funding with you. But I think it could be where they come back to us and say, look, we'll help you. We'll be able to save you a few basis points, maybe. And that, I'm not looking. I'm not looking at them to negotiate with them. I'm truly looking for the best way that we can invest these dollars. And so my suggestion would be that we talk with PFM. We ask them for some, if they want to put a proposal together. I know, Margaret, you're on the call as well, that we do have a relationship with them, an annual relationship with them for them to do work for us. If, if you'd be willing to, yeah, go ahead, Margaret. If you'd be willing to reach out with them and maybe start a conversation, that might be helpful.
Yes, I'm more than glad to do that and pull in whoever you would like me to pull in very quickly, but I can certainly make the introduction, talk with Dan Kozloff. They'd be more than happy to assist. We have a retainer with them, which I think could cover some initial review. So I don't think we'd be looking at more money.
Okay, thank you. And again, to go to Commissioner Dersham's point, let's measure 5 times and cut once. I mean, let's be very prudent about this, and be very, very thoughtful about it. But I just think that the time is right, and it's just a conversation I'd be wanting to have. And in addition, if anybody would come to us, pensioners, people who are about to retire, citizens, if they would say to us, your money managers did not hit their benchmarks and underperform the market, what steps did you take? I think this would be a prudent thing that we could go back to them and say, we began to look at other options for how we could invest the funds.
Absolutely. And to be clear, I absolutely was not suggesting that we simply change our strategy, just that we look into it. So I think having a study done by PFM would be a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. If it makes sense, I'd like to be at least CC'd maybe on the conversations with PFM for records, that sort of thing. Or not, it's fine. I'm good either way, but be included there.
Actually, Jason, what I'd like to propose is that I reach out to Dan Kozloff and then immediately connect him with you so that you can kind of lay out what you want the study to include. So I would just be making the introduction for you.
That would be great, Margaret. Thank you.
Okay. And obviously we're advertised to meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So when there's a feasible time that we could loop back for an update, Jason, if you wanted to do it over email, or if you felt like a meeting of the retirement board, us doing this remotely would make sense, we'll leave that up to you. But we thank you for your willingness to talk with them, and thank you, Margaret, for making the introduction. And again, let's be mindful. Let's proceed with caution, but be open to the possibility that this could be good for us and our fund. So, any other discussion on that point before we move forward with our agenda? Okay, hearing none, it actually looks like that is the end of our agenda. Is there anything else that we wanted to discuss before we look for a motion to adjourn? Okay. Hearing none, we would look for a motion to adjourn at 11:46.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Okay.